Midweek football at Hindmarsh Stadium. On-pitch drama, fullbacks attacking more than they defend. Coaches getting passionate on the touchline. Controversial VAR calls. Completely hilarious VAR calls. Young stars making their mark. Late goals, top of the table, 13,000 fans. Does it get any better than that? What a game it was on Wednesday night to get us in the mood for a big weekend ahead. A real upgrade to Perry Park looks for the first time like it could realistically happen as Football Australia and Football Queensland collaborate. Yes, what a word that is, on a submission to the 100-day review of Brisbane's Olympic infrastructure plan. We've got our first whispers of a potential new coaches for Melbourne victory, whilst Ryan Teague is getting courted by China, no less. Dino Arslanigic plays A-League football, more transfer news, and a look ahead to round 16 on this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. My name is Lachlan Avil, joined again tonight by Jacob Stevens. Jacob, I know you've been a little bit under the weather the last few days, but you've come good for podcast day.
And so was my internet, which there was a massive outage in my area for a couple of days. But that was restored this afternoon, thankfully. So yeah, able to come in and help out. Always make time for the podcast if I'm available. So,
But not always time to attend Adelaide United games, though.
Well, it's not my fault I was sick, if I was feeling well, I would have gone. But no, it's, perhaps given the result, good thing that I wasn't there,
Oh, what a game.
It was a very good game. Yeah,
it was absolutely extraordinary. I mean, I understand why probably both sets of fans feel like they didn't get what they wanted out of it. But just for a neutral, just the quality of the game, the drama, the atmosphere, the players, the passion, like... It's the kind of game, especially because it's Auckland's first trip over to Adelaide. It feels like a kind of game that could start something between these two teams as well.
And I think it shows why both teams are near the top of the table as well, the way they both played. Like, obviously, very different styles of football, but both very, very effective. I think that obviously then shows in the scoreline, it being 2-2. They were just very well matched. Two really good systems, two really good squads going up against each other. The weather was absolutely perfect. I think it was like 28 degrees at kickoff or something. So beautiful weather, unlike on Saturday when it was 36. Much cooler.
No momentum swinging drinks breaks today.
No, that's right. Maybe that hurt Adelaide, but I think that actually, you've got to also look at the fact that Adelaide coming into this game, there were a lot of absences from that starting 11 that normally would have been in there. Big ones, Zach Clough, he wasn't in the starting 11. Ryan Kitto was replaced by Javi Lopez at left back. Isaias started as well. That's a lot of big changes to make to this team, and they were still able to go level pegging with one of the best sides in the league as well. I think that sort of vindicates why they're up near the top of the table so far this season. And likewise, Auckland, they're able to go on a really difficult away trip and be able to fight back literally into beyond the last minutes of the game and score that equaliser. It was a fantastic game of football.
I mean, despite all the rotation, there must be something in the water down there, because you hit like the Adelaide United trifecta. You have going down early and then recovering to get a result. You have conceding goals late at home to give away results, and a packed out Coopers. So they're the three things that Adelaide have been known for.
That's what you're going to get this season. That's right.
You're going to get no matter who's on the park. There are, of course, a couple of really, really big controversial moments that we have to talk about as well.
Yeah.
The first goal for Archie Goodwin, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a little Yaya Dukuli's making this run down the left-hand side, gives a little tug of the shirt on Callan Elliott. And it's a fascinating scenario because this is one of the rare occasions where Alex King, who is the referee, gave the goal, is recommended an on-field review by the VAR. And he obviously didn't want his conversation seen by anyone, because I don't know if you noticed, but he had his hand over his mouth the entire time. So I don't know if there's any lip readers about, but he was very secretive of it. And he ended up just saying, no, I'm going to back my decision. But for me, this is actually really confusing. I think this is a straight up foul. I know Steve Corica agrees with me as well, as he would. But, a little tug of the shirt, no matter, I think the word Kingy used was not enough impact, right? Not enough impact on the player. But if you think about when we talk about these cynical fouls and runs down the middle of the field, it's not about how big the actual impact of like the challenge is. It's about the resulting impact of it, right? So yes, the tug on the shirt was really small. But for me, it brings Elliott to ground. He doesn't have a reason to go down. He's not
It
going
means
down
that Yaya
anyway.
wins it. Yeah,
Absolutely. It means DeCooley wins it, and then there's a goal scored. So for me, I think that's pretty big impact, and it should have been a foul.
I definitely thought in the moment that he'd gotten away with it. It's like a pretty blatant shirt pull. But then it's also, it's like, it's a really difficult one, right? Because there's a player, you're like, well, what can I? This player is cut across in front of me, and that's actually something I saw Alex King sort of like, I guess, miming with his hands, because he was like doing the like directions of the players, and I don't know if that came into his thinking at all, because Callan Elliott, wasn't it, that came through from behind his right shoulder, so DeCooley wouldn't have seen him the whole way. All of a sudden, there's a player right in front of you. Like, you can understand why that happened, but I do agree that yes, that's interfered with Elliott's ability to play the ball. It means that DeCooley obviously then wins it, can go on completely unmarked, all the space in the world to just keep driving into the box and wait for Goodwin to catch up and put that ball across to him. Yeah, I definitely think that he got away with it live, but looking back, I'm thinking, like, I kind of agree with Alex King on it. Like, it's the tiniest of touches, and the defender throws himself to ground. If that happens in the box, the defender's doing it to the attacker. The defender's screaming, "That's never a foul! I barely touched him. He's milking it," and all the fans are saying the same thing. So it's one of those,
because it is a higher threshold in that scenario, though. I know,
but why should it be though?
Everyone can say it shouldn't be as much as they want, but it is. It is.
Yeah, it's just like. Yeah, I can see both sides of the argument. And, from a player's perspective, from DeCooley's perspective, I can sort of be like, yeah, what else can I do? I'm going to run into him at some point anyway, right? Like, he's just in front of me. No, but the instinct is to put your hands out at the very least. It's a difficult one. Look, the decision was made. I think the scoreline ended up fair anyway. With a 2-2 draw, so let's just leave it at that for now.
I think he's really gotten away with on there. I think Alex King got that one wrong, but I am going to go into bat for him here, because the very first Auckland goal, not exactly a controversial moment, but initially given as handball. Because I think my interpretation of what happened live was that Kingy was given the goal, but then the assistant referee fed him the handball.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's gone to VAR factual review. When you have the right angle on it, it very clearly hits the arm of the Adelaide United defender, right?
Yeah, it's
like not even close
same player.
To the Auckland hand. So it gets sorted out eventually, but I think he's been sold down a little bit there. The final point to touch on, and Carl Viet was not too happy about it in his post-match presser, the final goal, the equaliser for Auckland, being scored in the 9th minute of 7 allotted additional minutes. Obviously, you can still add on time.
Exactly.
In extra time. Was maybe a little bit too generous, Alex King?
I don't think so. I mean, you think about, yes, okay, the VAR decisions are going to come into play into the actual added time itself, but then you've got to consider everything that happens during that added time, all the time spent by players. I believe there was one Adelaide player at one point went down to the ground for a little bit during added time, and I was thinking to myself, that's just going to get added on at the end. Like, you're not actually wasting any time, you're just adding it on. I look, honestly, referee myself, I think that he's done the right thing in adding. If he feels that time deserved to be added on, then fair play, right? Like, you can't be too mad as a coach. What you should be mad at, Cole, is the fact that you conceded late in a game from another corner yet again.
Woeful defending.
It's the same thing every single time, and it has been all season long. And my brother was at the game, and he was saying, he usually sits behind the goal, so he would have had a decent view, but he was saying that every single corner Auckland had, Adelaide just left a player on Cox, the goalkeeper, every single time. Didn't bother marking him, didn't bother trying to take him out of the game. And then obviously in this situation, that's the player that scores the goal. So it just seemed like all game long, Adelaide were completely unawares of the threat that Auckland posed from set pieces. Whether it's willful ignorance, whether it was just a mental mistake, having played almost 100 minutes of football. I don't know, but it's a consistent problem. That's the thing.
It is a consistent problem. In this one, like, the two guys in the front post, they almost just get away. It wrong. They just run towards it. The ball goes over their heads, and it's a free header inside the 6 yard.
And I think that's because of the I don't want to say system, but the idea that Carl has in defending set pieces, and he's explained this in a post-match press conference before. He said, we always want to try and get first contact on the ball, right? Because then that completely eliminates the chance of them scoring directly from a header if you get the first touch. Obviously, that could get deflected or whatever, but most of the time it'll stop the attack dead. But it leads to then that situation where players are too over eager to get to the ball first that they completely abandon their marking, and it leaves somebody wide open. And if they don't win the ball, it falls to the goal scorer. So it does seem like there's definite needs for some tweaks there.
All I can hear in my head at the moment is Daniel McBreen going, "Don't worry about the zone, just mark the effing player, right?"
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Like that's the thing. It's like the simplest thing. And what really annoys me is that Bart Vriends was right there as well, just standing behind him the whole time. Didn't realize, hang on, the two guys that should be marking him have just run off. I've got to step up and do this. He just stood there still. Like, that's an experienced player who should know better. So, yeah, it's a bit disappointing to see that so late in the game again for Adelaide.
I thought another fascinating duel in this match was the one between Dylan Piraeus and Francis De Vrij. They've both been such effective players for their clubs all season. I think De Vrij won Player of the Month in December as well, or something like that. You know, just both of their abilities to get forward. You know, they're not... Probably De Vrij more so than Piraeus is more of a traditional fullback. Piraeus just kind of has that wing and just goes up and down the whole time, which makes it all the more remarkable that he's played every single minute of Adelaide United this season.
Crazy.
So they were running each other absolutely ragged, trying to get up and down the park, because those were, you know, the right side for Adelaide and the left for Auckland were the side that they wanted to go down more. And the fact that they were coming up and back led to a very open game, which was very exciting. I think Piraeus won the battle in the end. He managed to get through that ball that skimmed off the top of De Vrij's head, and then Piraeus makes the assist, which what we thought was the winner to give Archie Goodwin his second. I thought that was fascinating.
Yeah. They're both just really exciting players. It's crazy to me as well that there's a player of De Vrij's quality who's never had the chance at the A-League level.
He's been overseas, right?
He has been overseas, I believe, but never given a chance in the A-League. And, you know, now at the age of, where's he, 30 now, I think? He's got that opportunity, and he's proving, you know, I am a very, very good player, and he has been. And I think that what makes his performances so far so remarkable is the fact that, yes, he's attacking a lot, but he's also doing an incredible job defensively. You know, he wins his duels almost always, it feels like. He's very calm on the ball, press resistant, and then obviously he's got pace to burn up and down the wing, and gets involved in attacking phases of play as well. It's everything that you want from like a modern fullback, where they can get forwards very quickly, they're good on the ball. Whereas Piraeus, I think that, yeah, you mentioned he's played every single minute so far this season. And I said in the preseason, I don't know if I put it in the group chat maybe, but I was watching one of the Australia Cup games Adelaide were in when they were trying out this new sort of Piraeus position. And I was like, there's no way he can keep this up for 90 minutes a game, every game. Like, he is doing so much work up and down the wing. But he has managed it, right? Like, he's still going, he's still having an impact. It is a bit worrying for Adelaide because they don't really have anybody that can just come in and fill that. They'd probably look to Panache Medania, but I think a very different style of player and not as good defensively as Piraeus has been. Although that said, Piraeus did have a couple of howlers trying to clear the ball at times where he got his feet mixed up and it just went past him. But no, yeah, they're both awesome fullbacks to watch. Piraeus less of a fullback and more of just I don't even know what to consider.
A right sideline.
yeah, a right player. Like, he just does everything up that wing. It's remarkable to watch. And yeah, I mean, like you said, it led to a very open game, which is something that Auckland haven't seen a lot of this season. So I think it was also a good testament to them as a unit to be able to work within that and go, right, here are the adjustments we need to make to still be able to have a foothold in this game and not get carried away with it. And they did an excellent job of that. And yeah, these two players, hopefully we keep seeing more and more of them this season. They can stay fit and healthy. And these two teams as well. I know it's a bit early, but you know, that might have been, and I saw some people referring to it as sort of a preview for perhaps the grand final this year. And if that's the case, then it's going to be one hell of a game. Yeah,
absolutely. So to be fair to De Vrij, I looked at his flash score page. 5 years in Sweden. Right. And then he played a couple of games in the New Zealand National League last year before this. So to be fair to him, it is a step up going to the A-League. Yeah. And he's done
exceptionally
well. Very well. Well, I mean, that was an absolute classic game of A-League football. long may it continue. If we can have that every week, we will be
Yeah, that's right.
very happy. Some big news that has come out today on Thursday is that, as I say, Football Australia and Football Queensland, and as they say, representing the collective voice of Australian football, have submitted a comprehensive proposal to the Queensland Government's 100-day infrastructure review for the Brisbane 2032 Olympic and Paralympic Games. As part of that proposal, they suggest a Tier 2 rectangular stadium, Perry Park being that preferred location. I think it's very strongly preferred by most of the people in the know. Would be around 17 to 20,000 seats with room for an extra 13K temporary seats for the games itself. There were a couple of other little tidbits about some enhanced training sites and things like that as well. But remarkably, they have letters of support from places like the AFC, the OFC, the APL, Brisbane Roar, the PFA, which is the Players Association, all member feds as well. So, look, there's two different things here, I think, Jacob. Number one is obviously the need for Perry Park. And as a lot of people have been talking about online today, it is probably the single most impactful piece of footballing infrastructure we could choose to improve upon. It would have massive, ripple effects for the game in Queensland and the rest of the country as well, when you consider hosting international tournaments and stuff like that as well, on top of just how good it would be for the Brisbane Roar, for any NST teams, for local MPL teams and community programs as well. And then the second part of it is that it's actually just amazing to see so many different stakeholders in Australian football working together on something. Just full stop. Just all pushing in one direction, all coming together to say we are unified. This is what we want. We haven't really seen that too much in the realm of like government proposals for funding. So that's really impressive for me to see. And hopefully it's just more of the same moving forward.
I think it's because they've finally found something that actually benefits everybody, right? Like maybe, there's no real hidden intentions here. It's like everybody's been screaming out for this for so long now, and they've finally got a reason to really push it hard, and so of course they're going to come together and do it. Hopefully it gets up. We spoke a couple of weeks ago, I believe it was Paletti and I on the pod that week, and at that point it was just Brisbane Strikers had put in. So they'd done up some renderings of upgrading Perry Park to, I believe it was 8,000 capacity or something, with some stands. And at the time we were like, that's a decent compromise, but we'd like to see a bit more. And then this obviously comes out from the review, which is I think what everybody was sort of looking for in terms of a proper stadium there. It would be massive. I think for not just for Brisbane football, but for Australian football as well, to have that sort of a venue there in Queensland would be huge. But let's see, right? Because we keep hearing things, and it's just they do have to sort out this Olympic stuff quick, because it's 2032, it's coming up soon. In a relative time scale, it's not cheap, quick, or easy to put up this sort of infrastructure in Australia. There's tons of regulations. The cost of materials is extremely high at the moment. Like, the earlier they can get on top of this, the better, and the better chances of actually getting something out of this as well. Just a couple of things just from the report generally, though, that I want to point out as well. One of them is that there was, in the recommendations section, just sort of sneakily added in there, there was an interesting point that they recommend moving the interstate matches that would be held for the football from Amy Park and Sydney Football Stadium to the MCG and Homebush. So bigger venues was the recommendation in that report, which I found quite interesting, especially for the Olympics.
Wait, for the Olympics?
Yeah.
So they're recommending that games be played outside of Queensland in the Olympics?
Mm-hmm. They say that they should move the interstate football games, from Amy Park. So
that was happening anyway, was it? I wasn't aware of that.
I believe so. Well, because of just like, the need for venues. I believe back in the 2000 games, I believe Hindmarsh hosted a couple of games. Right. So, it's just to, spread everything out, I guess, and make sure there's enough venues. But that was an interesting one. I thought, are you sure you're going to get close to filling those out for Olympics games? I mean, maybe, because Olympics fever gets everybody. But and the other thing as well is sort of like the, I suppose, notable absence of Brisbane Strikers in a lot of this as well. Obviously, they've been a key stakeholder in the whole Perry Park conversation. And they obviously, I mentioned before, they had their own plans for things, whereas this, you know, perhaps it's not quite what they want. Maybe it's too big for them, or something like that. But you know, I'm sure they'll come around to it, because any sort of redevelopment at Perry Park would be good for them.
Absolutely.
You know, regardless of the scale. So it just might take a little bit of convincing of, you know, this is actually going to get a lot of support going, and, you know, really improve the facilities for you. So, you know, it'll be interesting to see how they sort of respond to this, I guess, as well.
Yeah. And then there's lots of complicated things going on with the NST, as we know. But I guess, you know, from FA's perspective, and well, I'll just stick with FA, but they know that maybe muddling the waters in terms of a clear, as we say, we want this clear proposal to the organising committee. It's maybe not worth it. And of course, if this gets up, it's going to benefit any NST team that comes in from Queensland in the future. They know that there's going to be the trickle on. Yeah, interesting. So this 100-day review, the date for final submissions is March 8th. So we still have a month and a half or so until that period closes. And then obviously they will review the submissions and then make a determination in the months following that, I assume. So we're still a little bit to wait. It was funny. I was actually on the phone today talking with one of our other colleagues in Ramble Australia, Kevin Sangster. You wouldn't have heard him on the pod for a little while, but he's been doing some more writing for us. And we were talking about the idea of doing a piece on Perry Park and just getting some awareness, because we know that public submissions are open as well. Whoever you are, you can go and make a submission to this Olympic committee. It turns out the awareness is pretty high. Football Australia did our job for us. So it was a funny coincidence for it. But I guess my hope from this as well, and I wonder if you agree with me, is that moving forward, this can be the incident that, you know, brings all these different stakeholders together, but then keeps them together, because, you know, one, redevelopment in Queensland is definitely the number one priority, but it's not the only thing we want, right? We've talked about football being underfunded in Australia for many years. So hopefully, you know, this doesn't just get done and then all the fragments break apart again and spread around. We can stay like this, and hopefully if it does get up, we learn that this is an approach worth continuing, and we can collaborate on more things in the future.
Yeah, it's wishful thinking, I think, because again, I think that this is a situation where it benefits all parties, so they're going to get around it. I think it's about them realizing that this is really the only way to get things going, you know, and getting proper support for things at a government level is by doing this, and getting all the parties together. So in the future, they need to be looking for more common ground. You know, sort of at the moment, you have the APL and FA obviously are distinct entities for a reason, because that's what the clubs wanted. And, you know, there's been talk about them collaborating more and more.
They're definitely on better grounds the last
So
few
I think
years.
it's about finding these common ground issues where they can all agree and go, this is for the best of the game. It's going to benefit all of us, or at least taking issues, and maybe not, it's not the perfect solution, but it's the one that's going to benefit everybody. You know, if not to the largest extent, at least it's going to benefit to some extent, because that way they can all still get behind it and improve it. I think that's the thing. Like, we've got to take little steps here, because it's just for so long just not been getting support at the government level for these sorts of projects. So, the more that this happens, the better.
Absolutely. All right. Very good. Make sure if you want to make a public submission, you still can. We encourage you to do so. All the support for Perry Park is a good thing. Let's bring things, I was going to say back to the A-League. This player is playing in the A-League, Ryan Teague, reportedly considering an approach from the Chinese Football Association to switch his international allegiances. This is coming from Marco Monteverde. He's reporting that the former Australian under-17 captain would be tempted perhaps by the cashed-up CFA, who are in the process of scouring the globe for eligible players at the moment. That would be... Look, it's early days, right? And there's nothing been decided, obviously, by the player. But that would be a massive blow for Australia, because he has been, for 18 months now, since the start of the last A-League season, one of the most consistent young performers in the league the whole way through.
Yeah. I didn't even know he had Chinese eligibility.
Through his mother, apparently.
Oh, okay. There you go. You learn something every day. It's something that China has been doing for a while now, the Chinese FA. It's sort of the thing that, with Australia, it's always people going online and searching up players with Australian passports, or whatever, for whatever reason. And it's like, well, China are clearly doing the same thing.
So many Asian nations.
Yeah. It helps that these countries don't have necessarily big talent pools, in their own country, so they do have to look elsewhere. But it would be a huge blow for Australia for sure, because he's the sort of player that can definitely come into the Socceroos side and have an impact. He's been a tremendous midfielder for the Victory for, like you said, 18 months now, consistently just extremely good, hardworking, rarely makes mistakes. Now he's starting to get on the score sheet as well. He's really added that to his game in the last few weeks. So it's promising signs for him as a player. It'll be interesting to see how it pans out. Maybe it forces Australia's hand a little bit to try and get him into a squad earlier to bring him back away from China. I don't know if maybe he's not even interested in the possibility of it. I know it says that he's considering it, but how to what extent is he actually considering it? So it'll be interesting to see. For Australia's sake, hope it doesn't happen, because you'd be losing another talented player there. But best of luck to him for whatever, because he's a very, very good player, and he for sure will have plenty of opportunities to show that in international football, whether it's for China or Australia.
Absolutely. While we're on Melbourne Victory, Monteverde also reporting that John Aloisi and Nick Montgomery are two potential names that Melbourne Victory are considering to maybe replace Arthur Dillers. The other whispers going around is that he signed an 18th-month deal to take him through to the end of the 25-26 season. If that is true, it just seems odd that the club haven't announced it yet. They haven't won a game. Maybe they are waiting for a good moment. I know that's been suggested, but the longer it goes, the kind of more awkward it gets, and people are finding it out about it the other way. But then you've got the consideration of Nick Montgomery, who's assistant at Tottenham Hotspur at the moment under Ange, and John Aloisi, who's done extremely well with this crop of youngsters over at Western United this year. Could you see either of those two coaches taking over Victory, maybe, let's say, for the start of next season?
Aloisi, yes. Montgomery, less so. I think, Montgomery's had his time in the league and proven what he can do, and has got his big move over to Europe, and, is now, like you said, assistant at Tottenham, and he'll be looking to kick on from that. Whereas Aloisi, I think what he's done is he's really turned around his fortunes this season, right? Like the last couple of seasons, people have been going, how long do Western give him? Until he turns form around, or they have to get rid of him, and they've backed him through it all. Obviously, he won the championship with them early on, and they've stuck with him since then. Little success until now this season, where he's turned Western into one of the form sides in the league. He's very well versed in obviously the A-League and sort of its environment, the sphere that it exists within, the sort of players that you're looking for, the style of football you want to play, how to appeal to those players and get them playing good football. It seems like a pretty decent grab if they can get him. Whereas Montgomery, I just feel like I'd feel like he wouldn't consider the move. I don't know. Maybe that's just me that thinks that. But I feel like he'd be looking. With you. Like, I feel like he'd be looking for the next step in his career, not to sort of move back to the A-League, so early on. I think that of those two, Aloisi is probably the more likely.
I think John Aloisi, this might be a controversial suggestion, right? But just imagine for me with a couple of presumptions that Melbourne Victory stay where they are and don't finish inside the six. There's rumours, you obviously just lost Jason Guerrero, rumours that Daniel Lozano could be floated to going elsewhere as well. Maybe Ryan Teague goes to China and then wants to play in a Chinese club, whatever, right? And then Western United, they've done really well with their young crop. They get a third or fourth, maybe lose a semi-final. You're 1 year away from your new stadium being built. You've already won a championship with that club. You feel like you're part of the story, part of the inception of it. Where would you rather be? Is Melbourne Victory even a convincing case to move?
It's a good point, because Victory aren't what they used to be, to put it lightly.
No.
They, the last couple of seasons, they've really struggled to find form. They've struggled financially, as we know. They've struggled on and off the field. So it does seem like a strange one. But then, is it maybe appealing to have that ability to be like, I can bring Victory back to being one of the big teams in the league again, and get the fans back on board, and become that big club in Australia. I don't know, mate. Or the pay could they pay him more, and that becomes a part of it, and he goes, oh, that's quite appealing actually. a nice decent pay rise. Yeah, I don't know. I do agree that what he's got going at Western is very, very good, and you can tell he's worked really hard on it, because it has been years and years of just sort of meandering results and not a lot of success. So to finally have that crop of youngsters that they've been working on for the last couple of years coming through and having an impact, yeah, it would be difficult to leave that as well. So I can definitely understand your perspective on it.
All right. Dino Aslanigic, interesting story here. If you didn't understand my reference in the intro, he had a bit of an altercation with police a little while ago after a day on the drinks. And one of the lines he was quoted as saying is, "Who are you? I play A-League football." Maybe try to intimidate a little bit. He has left the Bulls. The quote from the club was, "On compassionate grounds." This comes, it might have been the day of or even the day after. He pled guilty and was convicted of 3 charges: being an excluded person who failed to leave the premises when required, intimidating a police officer in execution of their duty, and resisting a police officer in execution of their duty. So that clearly falls within the club's grounds of bringing the club into disrepute, and he was released from his contracts on Wednesday. So he is gone. He came in 4 months ago, and he's out.
Yep. What's going on with MacArthur? That's another one to add on to the has done something and has gotten released.
Yeah.
After that crazy off season they had. So yeah, look, not ideal for them. And it feels like it's another instance of an A-League footballer just doing something stupid and throwing their opportunity away. I feel like we've seen it quite a lot of times now, where it's like, just pull your head in, and don't make any trouble. You'll be fine. You can keep playing football. But this sort of stuff, it's just silly. But then conversely, I've seen a few people go, oh, this sounds like a normal Wednesday for an AFL player, and they don't get released from their contracts. So,
I don't know. Yeah.
I don't know about that either, but it's that's always the comparison that's brought up, isn't it? But
yeah.
No, this really sucks for MacArthur to bring in a player and then 4 months later you have to release them for something like this. It feels like whatever they do this season, it just doesn't go right for them. On the field, they've been playing some good football at times and not been getting results. And then all of this stuff off the field, which doesn't help either. So, no, it's not good for the club. It's not good for Aslanigic either, who this was a chance for him to get back into football and make an impact, and just couldn't do it clearly. So yeah, it's a real shame to see.
All right. Well, while we're talking former MacArthur Bulls players, Charles Mbombwa is off to the Newcastle Jets. He's picked up a new club. And then interesting as well, Nathan Amanatidis to the Raw from Sydney FC. And all the wording around this deal is like transfer to Sydney to Brisbane. We obviously know that can't happen, right? So I don't know the intricacy. Is it just a mutual release from Sydney and then he's getting picked up by the Raw?
Yeah.
But it's never really worded like that.
No, it's a bit strange, isn't it? Are they teasing something we don't know from behind the scenes, that they've just miraculously implemented a domestic transfer system?
Oh, wouldn't that be great?
That would be great. Could you imagine if nobody had heard of it, and then the way that we find out is through a poorly written press release? that would be again peak A-League. But no, I mean, it's a good pickup for the Raw. Amanatidis is a very, very talented player, and it's another young player leaving Sydney because he's probably not going to get many minutes. So they're going to let him go. This one, yeah, like you said, though, doesn't seem to be alone. This one seems like it's a permanent move of some sort. So yeah, I'm guessing it would be a case of released from Sydney and then picked up by the Raw. But yeah, it seems like it's a good deal for the Raw to get somebody like him in to help them out. They've obviously Tommy Waddingham, he's out, so bring in another young forward to try and find some of that magic again might help out for them. But best of luck to him. Obviously a bit of SA heritage there as well. Yes, always wish those guys good luck. And then Charles Mbombwa to the Jets. How long's he been out of the league.
I feel like he played last year.
Yeah, I feel like it's not been very long, and now he's back again.
Yeah.
He had definite flashes at MacArthur.
He did.
So, if the Jets can get that out of him, they're building up this really interesting side in attack. Lockie Rose is starting to score goals now that he's back.
Yep.
They've got the likes of Clayton Taylor, who's a tremendous talent as well. So it seems like they're really focusing on that attacking third and bringing in some really good talent there. So again, best of luck, and hopefully it works out for them.
I realize as I'm reading down the list of names we have here, I've ordered this all terribly. I'm going to jump back to the Jets because we have Kota Mizunuma as well, another Japanese player who's joining the A-League. We're up to 10 now. I saw this really nice tweet from Tomoki Imai actually the other day. He was saying, when he came, he was one of, if not the only Japanese player, and now they have this really nice big Japanese contingent, which is really cool. I think we've talked about this last week, but seeing more Asian and Japanese players come into the A-League is really cool. Getting some players off the next door neighbours. And
it's
really...
something that fans have always been saying, why aren't we targeting Asian players more?
Absolutely.
And, it's starting to pay off now, right? Because they're coming in and they're doing a good job. So, hopefully it sort of opens up that pipeline a little bit because, they are basically right next door to us. I mean, as close as you can get, really. The J League, it's a decent level as well. So, the more that you can sort of bring those players in, the better.
Absolutely. Some confirmed deals that we've talked about that are now publicly official. Thomas Waddingham off to Portsmouth. We've talked about that plenty. Amazing deal for him and an opportunity at the Aussie hub of English football at the moment. I feel like that's become a meme now. It's like whenever an A-League player, it's like instead of Chelsea is putting in for a bid for this player, it's Portsmouth are putting in a bid for this player, right?
Yeah.
They're just in love with Australians at the moment. Ariath Piol definitely leaving the Bulls. The destination was undisclosed in the release, but we believe it to be Real Salt Lake in the MLS. That one is done. Mohamed Elte is going to the Western Sydney Wanderers, but who will not be going to the Western Sydney Wanderers or the A-League altogether is Thomas Deng. He is signed with another club that loves Australians, Yokohama F. Marinos in J1, of course. So, look, I think that is a great move for him personally. It's disappointing not to see him in the A-League, but absolute quality club there with Yokohama. But he will not be signing for Western Sydney or Melbourne Victory, who are the two clubs that we know were chasing him.
While it sucks for those clubs and for the league to not be able to have a player of his caliber, for him it's a good move, right? Because it's at a very, very good level for one of the best clubs in the league there. So it's the best for him. Obviously he's been in and around the Socceroos now for a little bit. Had that start against China and Adelaide where kind of struggled, and then Guerrier came in and has sort of had that spot since. So it'll be a good opportunity for him to play at a good level and try and bring his own level up as a player and get some good performances under his belt to try and push for that starting spot in the Socceroos again. Like I said, I think that it's a good move for him, and it does suck for those two clubs because now they've got to look elsewhere, and there's not a lot of options out there now. Players. So there is one indeed. Yeah. And was it Joey Lynch that put something out about that?
It was Joey, yeah. So Joey spoke to Arthur Dillers, Melbourne Victory, to confirm that they are in conversation with Miloš Degenek. So we were talking that maybe it'd be a coin flip between Wanderers and Victory for each of those two players, Deng and Degenek. One would go one way, one would go the other. Now it appears they're probably both fighting for just Degenek, and we definitely know now that Melbourne Victory are in the conversation.
And it makes sense, right? Because they need somebody to come in. So, like I said, slim pickings. He's really the only big name that's available in terms of Australian defenders.
Do you think they really, really do need to bring someone in? I know Josh Rawlins has had a little bit of a rocky start, but he hasn't been given that long stretch of opportunity, right? When he actually came in, when Miranda got suspended, and I think he came in at just centre-back rather than right-back, so it was a different scenario. But he played really, really well in that game. And he's a young, quality player. I would like to see, personally, him given opportunity.
I agree that he's a good player. But then you've also got to think, who's behind him in the pecking order?
Sure, cover.
And if you can bring in Degenek, then that'll it'll push Rawlins down, but you've got coverage in case of an injury, which does help out and might factor into it. But yeah, it definitely looks like the Wanderers would be more inclined to go hard for him because they do need him more, right? Obviously, they've been ravaged by injuries defensively, and the defenders that they have played so far haven't really been up to standard. So yeah, they'll definitely be pushing hard for him. Whereas the Victory, I think, can afford to be. Just a little bit more relaxed with it, I guess. They don't have to be so needy, because you're right. Rawlins is a quality young player who just hasn't had his opportunity yet. And I thought he was actually all right against Adelaide as well. He was marked up 1-on-1 against Ben Falami most of the game and did a decent job to limit the chances that Falami could do, and the ones that Falami did create weren't great chances. So he did a decent job there. So yeah, perhaps for the Victory, it's more of a case of, we're looking at him because he's available and he would be good. It would be good if we could get him, but it's not an absolute necessity at this point in time.
Now I'm thinking about it as well. Roderick Miranda and Brendan Hamill have not lit the world on fire in the last few weeks as well. We've talked about some of their individual errors that have led to goals recently. So maybe some competition wouldn't do them harm either. Some good news on the opposite side of Melbourne. Marco Tilio is back in Melbourne City's match day squad for the weekend. He hasn't played in a couple of months, I reckon it was, from that hamstring. So they're slowly turning the wheel, getting those players back. Matt Leckie had, I think, 15 minutes on the weekend. Hopefully he'll be set for half an hour or something like that here. And just slowly build these players back. They're already pretty set. They're going to play finals, I think, personally. They're almost a lock for finals at this point. So just make sure that your team is ready for May. I think that's the most important.
It's a scary thought as well if they can start to bring these players and get them back into the squad as well, because they've been playing good football without them. So imagine the football they can play with them as well. And Tilio is one of those ones who I thought he looked very, very good, and then obviously got injured, and it's like, feels like it's another step back for him. It's basically been the story of his career so far, right? It's all just been step back after step back. But it is, as long as he continues to fight back, and with City where they are at the moment, Vidmar's really got the players, in a good mind frame, and they're working hard for results and they're getting them. So yeah, I'm with you. I think they'll play finals. Honestly, I think they'll probably push top 4, top 3 this year, just with what we've seen from them so far with a depleted squad. And I think, as they start to implement these other names back into the mix, the likes of a Leckie, the likes of a Tilio, then that's going to be a massive boost in morale, but also in hopefully performance for them too.
Maybe they'll upset the balance though of the young kids.
I mean, it's possible, right? Like it could be a case of, you've got a good thing going. Is there a need to really change things up too much? And then that's something that Vidmar will have to consider. But it's good to at least have those options and be able to have that discussion rather than being, this is the squad we're playing out of necessity. So.
For sure. All right, let's get into our weekend, Luke. Jacob, start me off with a burning question.
Will either of Sydney or Victory actually find any form? It's been just a period of nothingness really for both sides now. And now they're coming up against each other. And if it was back in December, Sydney got the result over Victory the last time, and we all thought maybe this is them going to turn a page and continue these performances, and then they didn't, and we thought, well, maybe Victory can bounce back from it, and then they didn't. So it's all just sort of it's been a rough month for the pair of them, and it's a good opportunity for them to come up against a side who's a bit down on form. A rivalry match always helps bring the players into it as well, and gets them fired up for it. So it'll be interesting to see if either of them can actually find some form again from this match and go on and get a result.
I'm going to jump around a little bit here. I'm actually going to go and give you my worst case scenario, which is that someone loses the big blue. And, more specifically, whoever loses the big blue, that would be their worst case scenario, because these are two teams that their squads are incredibly deep. They have a lot of quality. They've been remarkably inconsistent for the teams that they do have. And they find themselves sitting on either edge of the six. So the rivalry game, as you say, is one that they both should be able to get up for. And if we see the best of them and one loses, well, where does that leave you in your season, right? So
yeah, that's true.
You got to turn it around at some point, and it will probably end up being for one of these sides, but the other will have to go home or drive down the road home and not be too happy, and that's going to hurt them for the rest of their season. I'll go now to my burning question, because I know you're going to play off this as well, is that how much are all the new signings going to help Perth Glory? They brought a lot of players in, Lockie Wales, the Japanese pair, Patrick Wood, of course. I believe they're all available for selection. Maybe some of them aren't match fit, who knows? But when you're shaking up the team this much, we know they've been drip feeding out terminations, contract terminations as well. So bringing some of the bad out and then bringing in some of the good. What are they going to look like? They've actually, looked like a football team, as Andy Harper said on commentary the last couple of weeks. So add in a couple of these players and who knows what we're going to get.
Yeah, well, mine is, my worst case scenario is the opposite of that, which is that all these signings come in and hurt the Glory, because it feels like the Glory are, not finding form, but they're not quite as bad as they were to start the season. There's a couple of good games for them. So, perhaps bringing some signings in there could destabilize it. Maybe. I think it will be a good thing for them to get these players in, but it would be an absolute worst case scenario if it comes in and it just sort of resets them to the start of the season form again, and they look unable to get a result at any point. The players come in, they're not used to the system that they're going to be playing in, all that sort of stuff, the heat over in Perth, all that fun stuff. So it would suck for Perth if they come in and actually make the team worse.
My ping from distance this week is that the Mariners get an away win over in Wellington. Obviously, both of them got wins last week. I think Wellington a little more fortunate to do so, and I said this in our preview video over on YouTube as well. I just think the Mariners, the main question around them, to be fair, there hasn't been just one question. Obviously, the defense has been shaky. Brian Kaltak hasn't been in the best form. Trent Sainsbury now has about a month of football under his belt. So hopefully that consistency will help him and help the unit as a whole. But then going forward, it was, who's going to score their goals? They got two strikers who weren't scoring goals. Well, they actually both scored last week, Ryan Edmondson and Aluk Wall. So I reckon the Mariners are just building just a little bit. I don't want to say it too loudly, but Wellington at home, they've proven fragile so far this year. So,
I was going to say it's a good time to come up against them as well.
It is.
The form they're in.
Absolutely. And they haven't brought in the January reinforcements yet. We know they're looking for someone. They will bring in a new number 10, a visa player, we believe. So getting them before that is surely a good thing as well. Yeah.
Well, mine also involves the New Zealand team. The other one, Auckland. I think the Wanderers upset Auckland. I don't know why, but
I think again it's a good time for them to play Auckland.
It is, right? They've just about eked out a draw at the literally last, knock of the ball against an Adelaide team that was missing a lot of key starters. They obviously have managed to lose against Perth, and I think what Western showed was that if you are really incisive in attack and you look to attack them and just be relentless in that, then you can swing the balance in your favour. And I think that's something that the Wanderers have done really well this season. Stajic has set them up for it to score a lot of goals, and that's what they've been doing. So I think that's really the one way to upset Auckland, is to just be aggressive and attacking, and not play into how they want to slow the game down a lot of the time and change the tempo. So if the Wanderers can be aggressive at home and force the issue early, then there's every possibility that they could get a result here.
All right, very good. There is our weekend look. One little nugget that I've just managed to pop on the timeline before we sign off. Australia have been drawn against Japan, Vietnam, and the UAE in the Under-17 Asian Cup proper in Saudi Arabia in a couple of months' time. Can't seem to avoid Japan.
It's just going to happen every time. Just lock it in at this point. Just put them in a group together every time. It's inevitable. But it's always a good test, right, to be coming up against sort of the big one in East Asia is Japan, and has been for a long time. So to be able to sort of compare yourself to them, obviously this is at a much younger age than the senior side, but to be able to compare, I think that's a good idea as well, to go across, the age levels and go, where is it that we're lacking, in terms of development and things like that? Is it at the top end? Is it right at the bottom? Is it somewhere in the middle? It'll be a good opportunity. It's going to be tough, hopefully a good game. These young sides for Australia, under 18s, under 21s, under 23s, they're always playing good football. They're always immensely talented players and just stacked squads.
Well, from what I hear from all of the kind of like scouting accounts on Twitter is that this age group in particular is very talented. So looking forward to seeing what they can do.
Yeah, it should be extremely exciting because this is sort of, the future of Australian football will be on display against, the future of these other Asian nations. And we can really sort of evaluate whereabouts we're at and if we can expect to see any success in a couple of years in the future based on perhaps the results they get here or the performances they put in. So it'll be really awesome to see. And hopefully I get to wake up and, go onto Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever and just see all these accounts posting highlights of the games and going, this player had an excellent game, and stuff like that. It's always good fun.
Portsmouth have submitted a bid for...
Yeah, well, that's it. That's the Portsmouth scouting done for the next couple of years is just watch those games.
Watch the Aussie, the under-17 World Cup qualification as well in the underage groups on the line at these tournaments as well. So good luck to those boys. But that will do for this episode of the Round Ball Australia podcast. I love these little midweek ones. Get stuck into the kind of news around the game of football, which is very fun. Jacob Stevens, thank you for joining me.
No problem, Lockie. It's good to good to have been well enough to do it. Good that my internet decided to cooperate as well. So all around a good one.
Good to see you feeling better. Thank you all very much at home for listening as well. We very much appreciate your company. Good to get stuck into the new year and get back into the rhythm of football. It's been good fun. But we'll be back on Tuesday for another A-League Men's Round review. Thank you very much for listening. We'll see you then. Goodbye.